camera seems to work pretty well.
Okay.
But everything that I have read so far about healthy people wearing masks is not the thing. And I would go outside and think that. And people are being safer than like fungus and my lungs and things like that. So a lot of she has to wear she has to wear hers every day, all day long at work.
Yeah.
And so by the time she gets home, she's like, hey, she goes, say,
It's almost better just to.
and you know, those, the ones we should get from people running around, they say it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's not going to protect you if somebody else has it, because it only.
It filters out the air, no, incoming air, not outgoing air.
Right, but it filters up to whatever that measurement is, and the virus is actually 41, so it's actually small enough that it would get through there anyway. So I'm like, oh my gosh, and so the whole thing of wearing masks, to me again, is control, it's like China.
It's, we did an analysis of things that make masks and stuff like that.
Some places, some. So, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom. It is well, Psalm 92. It is well to praise the Lord and make music to your name, O God Most High, to proclaim your love and faithfulness all the day and through the night. La la la, la 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 la. May I dwell in your courts, O Lord, and to flourish like the trees of Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai, and to live forevermore. La la la, la 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 la. La 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 la. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall live in peace. Jerusalem, 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 Jerusalem shall live in peace. Shalom, 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 Yerushalayim. Shalom, shalom, Yerushalayim. Shalom, shalom, Yerushalayim. Shalom, shalom, Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 shalom. Shalom, 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 Yerushalayim. I'm Israel, I'm Israel, I'm Israel, Chai. 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 Ola Venu Kai, Ola Venu Kai, Kai. Ola Benu Kai. Ola Benu Kai. Ola Benu, Ola Benu, Ola Benu Kai. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much. That's it.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. So today we'll be reading and studying from double Torah portion, Chuqqat, Balaq. And so once this is the case, we'll be caught up with Israel. The Torah portion read in Israel will be the same as here in the States following this week. So we have sounded the shofars. If you'll join me where it says when the ark moved forward. When the ark moved forward, Moshe said, "Arise, Adonai, may your enemies be scattered, those who hate you flee before you." Matovu, we'll sing the Hebrew part there twice. Matovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. The Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Bless Adonai who is to be praised. Blessed be Adonai who is praised for all eternity. Amen. The blessing of Messiah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu et recha Yeshua, b'Moshiach Yeshua. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the way of salvation, the Messiah Yeshua. Amen. We assemble on Shabbat, the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. There are 6 days you may work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat of rest, a day of sacred assembly. You're not to do any work, wherever to live is a Shabbat to Adonai. And the foreigners who join themselves to Adonai to serve him, to love the name of Adonai, and to be his workers, all who keep Shabbat, do not profane it, hold fast to my covenant. I'll bring them to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my Beit Tefillah. The burnt offerings and sacrifices we accept on my altar from my house to call a Beit Tefillah for all peoples. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been raised, and entered the synagogue in the day of the Shabbat, as he was accustomed. For from the earliest times, Moshe has had in every city those who proclaim him, with his words being read in the synagogues every Shabbat. Would please stand for the Shema. To turn toward Jerusalem for the watch of our faith, beginning with Shema Israel. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam Vayed, Yeshua HaMoshiach, Hu Adonai. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our Elohim, Adonai is one. Bless his name in his glorious kingdom for all eternity. Yeshua Messiah, he is Adonai. Amen. The continuation of the Shema, beginning with Ve'ahavta. And if you recite in an undertone, but yet still loud enough for you and Adonai to hear. Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha v'kol levavcha v'kol nafshecha v'kol yodecha. And you shall love Adonai, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Let these matters that I command you today be upon your heart. Teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them while you sit in your home, while you walk on the way, when you retire, when you arise. Bind them as a sign upon your arm, and let them be frontlets between your eyes, and write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. So, if you listen carefully to my mitzvot, which I am giving you today, to love Adonai your Elohim and serve him with all your heart and with all your being, then says Adonai, I will give your land rain at the right seasons, including the early fall rains and the late spring rains, to gather in your wheat, new wine, and olive oil. Now give your fields grass for your livestock, with the result you'll eat and be satisfied. But be careful not to let yourselves be seduced, so that you turn aside, serving other gods and worshiping them. If you do, the anger of Adonai will blaze up against you. He will shut up the skies, so there will be no rain. The ground will not yield its produce, and you will quickly pass away from the good land Adonai is giving you. Therefore, you are to store up these words of mine in your heart and in all your being. Tie them on your hand as a sign. Bind them on your forehead as a headband. Teach them carefully to your children, talking about them when you sit at home, when you're traveling on the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. And write them on the door frames of your house and on your gates, that you and your children will live long on the land Adonai swore to your ancestors they give them for as long as there is scum above the earth. Adonai said to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel, instructing them to make for all generations tzitziot, the corners of their garments, and put with the tzitzit on the corner a blue thread. It is to be a tzitzit for your look at and thereby remember all of Adonai's mitzvot and obey them, so you won't go around wherever your own heart and eyes lead you to prostitute yourself. To help you remember and obey all my mitzvot, be set apart for your Elohim. I am Adonai your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to be your Elohim. I am Adonai your Elohim. Altogether, Amen. True. Adonai Elohechem, Amen. Adonai your Elohim is true. Amen. Love your neighbor. Ve'ahavta l'reika kamoka, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The Torah, good news. Just as Moshe lifted up the serpent in the desert, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that everyone who trusts in him may have eternal life. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only and unique Son, so that everyone who trusts in him may have eternal life. For Elohim did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but so that through him the world might be saved. Altogether, blessed are you, Abba, who sent Yeshua the Messiah, we might be saved through him. Amen. You may be seated. If you please stand for the Avinu, beginning with Avinu Shabbat Shamayim. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim Kadesh Shemcha. Our Father who is in heaven, may your name be set apart. V'yit Barech Malchutka, and may your kingdom be blessed. Retzonka Yeh Asui Bashamayim Uvaretz, who will be done in heaven and on earth. V'tetain Lachmenu Timidit, and give us our continual bread. Mokol Lanu Chatotenu Asher Anachnu Mokolim Lachotim Lanu. Forgive us the debt of our sins, as we forgive the debt of those who sin against us. They all tevinu lidei nision, not bring us the hands of a test. V'shempeinu mokolcha, protect us from all evil. Kilecha hamalucha v'hagavura v'kavod le'olam ulamei olamim. Amen. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and forever and ever. Amen. May be seated. So for prayer requests, we begin with Psalm 20. We'll get a chance to add your prayer requests to this as we progress. Psalm 20, beginning at verse 1. May Adonai answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the Elohim of Yaakov set you up on high. Send you help from the sanctuary. Grant you support from Zion. Remember all your mincha offerings and accept your olah offerings, Selah. May he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all your plans. We will triumph in your salvation. In the name of our Elohim, we'll set up our banners. May Adonai grant all your requests. Now we know that Adonai saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses. We trust in the name of Adonai, our Elohim. They are bowed down and fallen. We rise up and stand upright. Save, Adonai, for the King answer us, the daily call. Prayer request for healing. Mishabrak Avotenu v'Emotenu, Avraham v'Sarah, Yitzhak v'Rivka, Yaakov v'Kelvalechu Yivarech et HaHolim. May the one who was a source of healing for our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Yaakov, Rachel and Leah, bring blessings of healings on Martha, Dawn, Cynthia, Kitty, Andrew, Regina's grandmother Lucille, Rick and Stacy, Gary, Ruth, Connie's sister Mitzi, Joshua, John, Greg, Earl's cousin Mike, Manny, Grace's mom, Mike, Amanda's friend Jessica, Rick's son-in-law Gus, our daughter Lori, Elijah, Sherry, Tom's mom, Brad, Daryl's mom, Troopers Rocky Barnes, Steve Eason, and Ron Watson, as well as those made ill by COVID-19. If you are praying for others to be healed, if you would please say the names aloud now.
Alex Yoakum.
Healing of body and healing of spirit, first Shema, complete healing. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaHolim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals the sick. Amen. So for prayer requests, I guess Tom's praise of Oklahoma Glass Student dedicated account starting soon is sort of past tense. It has started, so that has a thumbs up. Cheryl is asking for favor for a new teaching position, and Earl's family has 3 down vehicles. He's asking for favor to get those fixed so it can continue on. So we'll pray for those, and when it comes to praise and prayers for rain for the US of A and for land people of Israel, we'd like to volunteer for praying for rain. You don't have to come up to the microphone to do that. You can pray from where you are. We'd like to pray for rain. Thank you, Cece. Who'd like to pray for the US of A? Don't wait to be voluntold.
I got it.
JD, thank you. Okay, you got your hand up, Tom, for a moment, so that means you want to pray for the land people of Israel, right? Okay. All right, well, let's once again turn our hearts towards him. Abba, we ask that you would be granting favor for Tom and keeping on that plastic account, that you allow him to stay closer to home. We just ask, we thank you for allowing him to be on one of the runs so far, and that a good start for that. We just ask you for continued favor for that. We also ask you for favor for Cheryl, that you would find her a new job, a job locally that she'll be able to support herself, her family. We also ask for favor for Earl to be able to find the issues, problems, and finances to repair all their down vehicles. We thank you in Yeshua's name.
Father, we thank you for the rain that you provided in the last couple of weeks. We ask that you would continue to supply that need as summer comes on, that you would bring it in the right amount to the places that are needing it, that you would spare us, even though we are sinning greatly in this generation. We ask that you would let us stand in the place and hold your light and be the blessing that's needed, that you would provide the rain to allow us to continue reaching out to the nations. Yes, in Yeshua's name.
Adonai, El Shaddai, we are truly thankful to be living in the United States, Father. We know that you set it up. And as the rest of the country, Father, most of the country is celebrating independence today. We pray, Father, that you would let them and help them to see that true independence and salvation comes from Yeshua HaMashiach, and we thank you for that. We pray, Father, that you would turn the eyes of our leaders toward you, and please help us during this tumultuous time. Please help us get rid of the division that we have constantly. We pray, Father, that you would protect us and never, ever, ever let us become an enemy of Israel. And Father, though we do not deserve, Shei Elohim Yavarech America, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, Amen.
Adonai, our God and King, just give you thanks and praise for being our God and King, the God of Israel. Just thank and praise you that you never sleep nor slumber. Your eye is always on the land and on the people, all our brothers and sisters in the land. Pray for your continued protection upon those people. Pray, Adonai, our God and King, that you would open their eyes, cause the scales to fall off, that they would see and hear the great news, the salvation, Messiah Yeshua. Just continue to be their protector, Adonai, to your glory. Bring glory unto your name. Those enemies who are in the land, may you arise, may they flee before you. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could you join me for Abba, we praise you. Abba, we praise you and thank you for hearing and answering our prayers. Amen. All right, it's time to get into the Torah reading portion of this. These are the readings we're doing today. It's double portion. 19th chapter, verse 1 of the book of Bamidbar, or Numbers. It goes to chapter 25, verse 9. If you join me for the blessing before reading the Torah portion. Open my eyes, so I will see wonders in your Torah. I'm a ger on the earth, hide not your mitzvot from me. The blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'karvanu b'kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from all peoples and given us his Torah. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen. Invite JD up for the Kohen portion.
וידבר אדוני אל משה ואל אהרון לאמור זאת חוקת התורה אשר ציווה אדוני לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל והכתוב אליך פרה אדומה תימה אשר אין בה מום אשר לא עלה עליה עול. And Adonai spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, This is the law of the Torah which Adonai has commanded, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they bring you a red heifer, a perfect one, in which there is no blemish, and on which a yoke has never come. And you shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and he shall bring it outside the camp, and shall slay it before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and sprinkle some of its blood 7 times toward the front of the tent of appointment. And the heifer shall be burned before his eyes. He burns its hide, and its flesh, and its blood, and its dung. And the priest shall take cedar wood, and hyssop, and scarlet, and throw them into the midst of the fire, burning the heifer. The priest shall then wash his garments, and shall bathe his body in water, and afterward come into the camp. But the priest is unclean until evening. And he who is burning it washes his garments in water, and shall bathe his body in water, and is unclean until evening. And a clean man shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and shall place them outside the camp in a clean place, and they shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for the water for uncleanness. It is for cleansing from sin. And he who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his garments, and is unclean until evening. And it shall be a law forever to the children of Israel, and to the stranger who sojourns in their midst. He who touches the dead of any human being is unclean for 7 days. He is to cleanse himself with the water on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he is clean. But if he does not cleanse himself on the 3rd day, then on the 7th day he is not clean. Anyone who touches the dead of a human being and does not cleanse himself defiles the dwelling place of Adonai, and that being shall be cut off from Israel. He is unclean. For the water for uncleanness was not sprinkled on him, his uncleanness is still upon him. This is the Torah when a man dies in a tent. All who come into the tent, all who are in the tent are unclean for 7 days. And every open vessel which has no cover fastened on it is unclean. Anyone in the open field who touches someone slain by the sword, or who has died, or a bone of a man, or a burial site, is unclean for 7 days. And for the unclean being, they shall take some of the ashes of the heifer, burnt for cleansing from sin, and running water shall be put on them in a vessel. A clean man shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and shall sprinkle it on the tent, and all the vessels, and on the beings who were there, or on the one who touched a bone, or slain, or the dead, or a burial site. And the clean one shall sprinkle the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall cleanse himself, and shall wash his garments, and bathe in water, and shall be clean in the evening. But the man who is unclean, and does not cleanse himself, that being shall be cut off from among the assembly, because he has defiled the set-apart place of Adonai. Water for uncleanness has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. And it shall be a law for them forever. And the one who sprinkles the water for uncleanness washes his garments, and the one who touches the water for uncleanness is unclean until evening. And whatever the unclean being touches is unclean. And the being who touches it is unclean until evening. And the children of Israel, all the congregation, came into the wilderness of Sin in the first new moon, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled against Moshe and against Aharon. And the people contended with Moshe and spoke, saying, if only we had died when our brothers died before Adonai. Why have you brought up the assembly of Adonai into this wilderness? We and our livestock should die here? And why have you brought us up out of Mitzrayim to bring us to this evil place, not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water? Then Moshe and Aharon went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of appointment, and they fell on their faces, and the esteem of Adonai appeared to them.
Yahweh then spoke to Moses and said, take the branch and call the community together, you and your brother Aaron. Then, in full view of them, order the rock to release its waters. You will release water from the rock for them and provide drink for the community and their livestock. Moses took up the branch from before Yahweh as he had directed him. Moses and Aaron then called the assembly together in front of the rock. He then said to them, listen now, you rebels. Shall we make water gush from this rock for you? Moses then raised his hand and struck the rock twice with the branch. Water gushed out in abundance, and the community and their livestock drank. Yahweh then said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe that I could assert my holiness before the Israelites' eyes, you will not lead this assembly into the country which I am giving them. These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites laid the blame on Israel, or on Yahweh, and where by their means he asserted his holiness. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Your brother Israel says this, you are aware of the great hardship we have encountered. Our ancestors went down to Egypt, and there we stayed for a long time. But the Egyptians treated us badly, and as they had our ancestors. When we appealed to Yahweh, he heard our cry, and sending an angel brought us out of Egypt. And here we are now at Kadesh, a town on the border of your territory. We ask permission to pass through your country. We will not go through the fields or vineyards. We shall not drink the water from the wells. We shall keep to the king's highway without turning to the right or left until we have passed through your territory. To which Edom replied, you will not pass through my territory. If you do, I shall oppose you by force of arms. To which the Israelites replied, we shall keep to the high road. If I and my flocks drink any of your water, I am willing to pay for it. All I am asking is to pass through on foot. Edom replied, you shall not pass. And Edom opposed them in great numbers and great force. At Edom's refusal to grant Israel passage through his territory, Israel turned away. I think I read one more verse if necessary.
And they set out from Kadesh. The Israelites, the whole community, came to Mount Hor. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aharon on Mount Hor, on the boundary of the land of Edom, saying, let Aharon be gathered to his people. He will not come into the land that I have given to the Israelites, because you rebelled against my word at the waters of Meribah. Take Aharon and Eleazar's son, and take them up to Mount Hor. Strip off Aharon's garments and put them on Eleazar his son. Aharon will be gathered to his people, and he will die there. So Moshe did just as Yahweh commanded, and they went up to Mount Hor before the eyes of all the community. And Moshe stripped off Aharon's garments and put them on Eleazar his son. Aharon died there on the top of the mountain, and Moshe and Eleazar went down from the mountain. All the community saw that Aharon had died, so all the house of Israel wept for Aharon 30 days. The Canaanite king of Arad, who was dwelling in Negev, heard that Israel came along the way of Atharim. He fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Israel made a vow to Yahweh, and they said, "If you will surely give this people to our hand, we will destroy their cities." Yahweh heard the voice of Israel. He gave them the Canaanites, and they destroyed them and their cities. They called the name of the place Hormah. They set out from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, but the people became impatient along the way. The people spoke against Yahweh and against Moshe. "Why have you brought us from Mitzrayim to die in the desert? There is no food and no water, and our hearts detest this miserable food." And Yahweh sent among his people poisonous snakes. They bit the people, and many people from Israel died. The people came to Moshe and said, "We have sinned because we have spoken against Yahweh and against you. Pray to Yahweh and let him remove the snakes from among us." So Moshe prayed for the people, and Yahweh said to Moshe, "Make for yourself a snake and place it on a pole. When anyone is bitten and looks at it, that person will live." So Moshe made a snake of bronze, and he placed it on the pole. Whenever a snake bit someone, that person looked at the snake of bronze, and he lived. The Israelites set out and encamped at Oboth. They set out from Oboth and encamped at Iye of Barim in the desert, which was before Moab toward the sunrise. From there they set out and camped in the valley of Zered. From there they set out and encamped beyond Arnon, which is in the desert that goes out from the boundary of the Amorites, because Arnon is the boundary of Moab between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore, thus it is said in the scroll of the wars of Yahweh, Wahid in Suphah, and the wadis of Arnon, and the slope of the wadis that spreads out to the dwelling of Ar and lies at the boundary of Moab. From there they went to Beer, which is the water well where Yahweh spoke to Moshe. "Gather the people that I may give them water." Then Israel sang this song, "Arise, well water, sing to it, well water that the princes dug, that the leaders of the people dug with a staff and with their rods." And from the desert they continued to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley that is in the territory of Moab by the top of Pisgah, which overlooks the surface of the wasteland.
Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, with this message: "Let me pass through your land. We won't turn aside into fields or vineyards, and we won't drink any water from the wells. We will go along the king's highway until we have left your territory." But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. Instead, Sihon mustered all his people and went out into the desert to fight Israel. On reaching Yachatz, he fought Israel. Israel defeated him by force of arms and took control of his land from the Arnon to the Yabok River, but only as far as the people of Ammon, because the territory of the people of Ammon was well defended. Israel took all these cities. Israel lived in all the cities of the Amorite, in Heshbon and all its surrounding towns. Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorite, who had fought against the former king of Moab and conquered all his land up to the Arnon. This is why the storytellers say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be rebuilt. Let Sihon city be restored." For fire burst out of Heshbon, a flame in the city of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the lords of Arnon's high places. "Woe to you, Moab, you are destroyed, people of Chemosh." He let his sons be fugitives and his daughters captives of Sihon, king of the Amorite. "We shot them down. Heshbon is destroyed, all the way to Dibon. We even laid waste to Nophash, which extends as far as Midvah." Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorite. Moshe sent men to reconnoiter the Yazer. They captured its towns and drove out the Amorite who were there. Then they turned and went up along the road to Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, marched out against them, he with all his people, to fight at Edrei. Adonai said to Moshe, "Don't be afraid of him, for I have handed him over to you with all his people and his land. You will treat him just as you did Sihon, the king of the Amorite, who lived at Heshbon." So they struck him down with his sons and all his people until there was no one left alive, and they took control of his land. Then the people of Israel traveled on and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan River opposite Jericho. Now Balaq, son of Zippor, saw all of Israel had done to the Amorite. Moab was very afraid of the people because there were so many of them. Moab was overcome with dread because of the people of Israel. So Moab said to the leaders of Midian, "This horde will lick up everything around us, the way an ox licks up grass in the field." Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at the time. He sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Petor, by the Euphrates River in his native land, to tell him, "Listen, a people has come out of Egypt, spread over all the land, and settled down next to me. Therefore, please come and curse this people for me, because they are stronger than I am. Maybe I will be able to strike them down and drive them out of the land. For I know that whoever you bless is in fact blessed, and whoever you curse is in fact cursed." The leaders of Moab and Midian left, taking with them the payment for divining, came to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak. He said to them, "Stay here tonight, and I will bring you back whatever answer Adonai tells me." So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me this message. The people who came out of Egypt have spread over the land. Now come and curse them for me. Maybe I will be able to fight against them and drive them out." God answered Balaam, "You are not to go with them. You are not to curse the people, because they are blessed."
Balaam got up in the morning, and said to the prince of Balak, "Return to your own land, because Adonai refuses to give me permission to go with you." The princes of Moab got up, returned to Balak, and said, "Balaam refuses to come with us." Balak again sent princes, more of them and of higher status than the first group. They went to Balaam and said to him, "Here is what Balak says." Balak, the son of Zippor, says, "Please don't let anything keep you from coming to me. I will reward you very well, and whatever you say to me, I will do. So please come and curse this people for me." Balaam answered the servants of Balak, "Even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of Adonai my God to do anything great or small. Now please, you two, stay here tonight, so that I may find out what else Adonai will say to me." God came to Balaam during the night and said to him, "If the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you." So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. But God's anger flared up because he went, and the angel of Adonai stationed himself on the path to bar his way. He was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of Adonai standing on the road, drawn sword in hand, so the donkey turned off the road into the field. Balaam had to beat the donkey to get it back on the road. Then the angel of Adonai stood on the road where it became narrow as it passed among the vineyards and had stone walls on both sides. The donkey saw the angel of Adonai and pushed up against the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against the wall. So he beat it again. The angel of Adonai moved ahead and stood in a place so tight there was no room to turn either right or left. Again, the donkey saw the angel of Adonai and lay down under Balaam, which made him so angry that he hit the donkey with his stick. But Adonai enabled the donkey to speak, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "It's because you've been making a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you on the spot." The donkey said to Balaam, I am your donkey, right? You've ridden me all your life, right? Have I ever treated you like this before? No, he admitted. Then Adonai opened Balaam's eyes so that he could see the angel of Adonai standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And he bowed his head and fell on his face. The angel of Adonai said to him, Why did you hit your donkey 3 times like that? I have come out here to bar your way because you are rushing to oppose me. The donkey saw me and turned aside these 3 times, and indeed, if she hadn't turned away from me, I would have killed you by now and saved it alive. Balaam said to the angel of Adonai, I have sinned. I didn't know that you were standing on the road to block me. Now, therefore, if what I am doing displeases you, I will go back. But the angel of Adonai said to Balaam, No, go on with the men, but you are to say only what I tell you to say. So Balaam went along with the princes of Balaq. When Balaq heard that Balaam had come, he went out to meet him in the city of Moab at the Arnon border, in the farthest reaches of the territory. Balak said to Balaam, I sent more than once to summon you. Why didn't you come to me? Did you think I couldn't pay you enough? Balaam replied to Balak, Here, I've come to you, but I have no power of my own to say anything. The word that God puts in my mouth is what I will say.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So Balaam went with Balaq, and said to Balak, Behold, I have come now to you. Am I able to speak anything at all? The word that God puts in my mouth, that I shall speak. So Balaam went with Balak. They came to Kiriath-Huzoth, and Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep, and sent some to Balaam and to the leaders who were with him. And then it came about in the morning that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal, and he saw from there a portion of the people. And Balaam said to Balak, Build 7 altars for me here. Prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me here. And Balak did just as Balaam had spoken, and Balak and Balaam offered up a bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, Stand beside your burnt offerings, I will go. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet me, and whatever he shows me, I will tell you. So he went to a bare hill. Now God met Balaam, and he said to him, I have set up the 7 altars. I have offered up a bull and a ram on each altar. And then the Lord put the word in Balaam's mouth and said, Return to Balak, and you shall speak thus. So he returned to him, and behold, he was standing beside his burnt offering, he and all the elders of Moab. And he took up his discourse and said, From Aram Balak has brought me, Moab's king from the mountains of the east. Come curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? And how shall I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? As I see him from the top of the rock, and I look at him from the hills, behold, a people who dwell apart, and will not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, or number the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his. Then Balak said to Balaam, Why have you done to me? I told you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have actually blessed them. And he replied, Must I not be careful to speak what the Lord puts in my mouth? And then Balak said to him, Please come with me to another place from where you may see them. And although you will only see the extreme end of them, and you will not see all of them, and curse them for me from there. So he took him to the fields of Zophim, to the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars, and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. And then he said to Balak, Stand here beside your burnt offering, while I myself meet the Lord over there. And then the Lord met Balaam and put a word in his mouth and said, Return to Balaq, and thus you shall speak. So he came to him, and behold, he was standing beside his burnt offering, and the leaders of Moab with him. And Balak said to him, What has the Lord spoken? And then he took up his discourse and said, Arise, O Balak, and hear. Give ear to me, O son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, nor son of man that he should repent. Has he said, and he will not do it? Or has he spoken, and he will not make it good? Behold, I have received a command to bless. When he has blessed, then I cannot revoke it. He has not observed misfortune of Jacob, nor has he seen trouble in Israel. The Lord his God is with him, and the shout of the king is among them. God brings them forth out of Egypt, for he is for them like the horns of the wild ox. For there is no omen against Jacob, nor is there any divination against Israel. At the proper time it shall be said to Jacob and to Israel, What God has done. Behold, a people rises like a lioness, and as a lion lifts itself, it will not lie down until it devours its prey and drinks the blood of the slain. Then Balak said to Balaam, Do not curse them at all then, nor bless them. But Balaam replied to Balak, Did I not tell you, whatever the Lord speaks, that I must do?
Balak said to Balaam, Come, I'll take you now to another place. Maybe it will please God for you to curse them for me from there. Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor, overlooking the desert. Balaam said to Balak, Build me 7 altars here and prepare me 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam said and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. When Balaam saw that it pleased Adonai to bless Israel, he didn't go, as at the other times, to make use of divination, but looked out toward the desert. Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe. And the Spirit of God came upon him, and he made this pronouncement. This is the speech of Balaam, son of Beor, the speech of the man whose eyes have been opened, and speech of him who hears God's words, who sees what Shaddai sees, who has fallen, yet has open eyes. How lovely are your tents, Yaakov, your encampments, O Israel. They spread out like valleys, like gardens by the riverside, like succulent aloes planted by Adonai, like cedar trees next to the water. Water will flow from their branches, their seed will have water aplenty. Their king will be higher than Agag, and his kingdom lifted high. God, who brought them out of Egypt, gives them the strength of a wild ox. They will devour the nations opposing them, break their bones, pierce them with their arrows. When they lie down, they crouch like a lion, or like a lioness, who dares to arouse it. Blessed be all who bless you, cursed be all who curse you. Balak blazed with fury against Balaam. He struck his hand together and said to Balaam, I summoned you to curse my enemies. But here you have done nothing but bless them 3 times already. Now you'd better escape to your own place. I had planned to reward you very well, but now Adonai has deprived you of payment. Balaam answered Balak, Didn't I tell the messenger you sent me that even if Balak could give me his palace full of silver and gold, I could not of my own accord go beyond the word of Adonai to do either good or bad? That what Adonai said is what I would say. But now that I'm going back to my own people, come, I will warn you that what this people will do to your people in the Achrit Hayamim. So I made this pronouncement. This is the speech of Balaam, son of Beor. The speech of the man whose eyes have been opened, the speech of him who hears God's words, who knows what Elyon knows, who sees what Shaddai sees, who has fallen yet has open eyes. To see him, but not now. Or I'm sorry, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not soon. Excuse me. A star will step forth from Yaakov. A scepter will arise from Israel to crush the corners of Moab and destroy all descendants of Shet. His enemies will be his possessions. Edom and Seir possessions. Israel will do valiantly. From Yaakov will come someone who will rule, and he will destroy what is left of the city. He saw Amalek and made his pronouncement. First among nations was Amalek, but destruction will be its end. He saw the Canaanite and made this pronouncement. Though your dwelling is firm, your nest is set on rock. Cain will be waste while captive to Ashur. Finally, he made this pronouncement. Oh no, who can live when God sees this, or does this, excuse me. But ships will come from the ships will come from the coast of Kittim to subdue Asher and subdue Aver. But they too will come to destruction. Then Balaam got up, left, and returned to his home, and Balaq too went his way. Israel stayed at Shittim, and there the people began whoring with the women of Moab. These women invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, where the people ate and bowed down to their gods. With Israel thus joined to Baal Peor, the anger of Adonai blazed up against Israel. Adonai said to Moshe, take all the chiefs of the people and hang them facing the sun before Adonai, so that the raging fear of Adonai will turn away from Israel. Moshe said to the judges of Israel, each of you is to put to death those in his tribe who have joined themselves to Baal Peor. Just then, in the sight of Moshe and the whole community of Israel, as they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of meeting, a man from Israel came by, bringing to his family a woman from Midian. When Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon the Cohen, saw it, he got up from the middle of the crowd, took a spear in his hand, and pursued the man from Israel right into the inner part of the tent, where he thrust his spear through both of them, the man from Israel and the woman through her stomach. Thus was the plague among the people of Israel stopped. Nevertheless, 24,000 died in the plague. Maftir. When Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aharon the Cohen, saw it, he got up from the middle of the crowd, took a spear in his hand, and pursued the man from Israel right into the inner part of the tent, where he thrust his spear through both of them, the man from Israel and the woman through her stomach. Thus was the plague among the people of Israel stopped. Nevertheless, 24,000 died in the plague. Thus ends reading of the Torah. If you join me for the blessing after reading the Torah portion, begin with Baruch Atah. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah tamet v'yei olam nata betocheinu. Blessed are you, Adonai our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the Torah of truth and put everlasting life in our midst. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen. So our Haftorah reading is from the prophet Micah. It begins in chapter 5, and there is a versification difference there, a small one. If you join me for the blessing before the Haftorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'kar b'nevi'im tovim v'atzah devachem hagamarim b'amet. Blessed are you, Adonai our Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen his prophets and was pleased with the word that they spoke in truth. Baruch atah Adonai habokir b'Torah of Moshe Abdo Yisrael Amo u'Nevi'yei ha'amet v'tzedek. Blessed are you, Adonai, who chose Torah, and Moshe his servant Israel, his people, and prophets of the truth and righteousness. Again, it's Micah, depending on your translation, either 5 verse 6 or 5 verse 7, where our portion begins and it goes to chapter 6 verse 8. Then the remnant of Yaakov surrounded by many peoples, will be like dew from Adonai, like showers on the grass, which doesn't wait for a man or expect anything from mortals. The remnant of Yaakov among the nations, surrounded by many peoples, will be like a lion among forest animals, like a young lion among flocks of sheep. If it passes through, tramples and tears to pieces. There is no one to rescue them. Your hand will be raised over your enemies. All your adversaries will be destroyed. When that day comes, says Adonai, I will cut off your horses from among you and destroy your chariots. I will cut off the cities of your land and lay waste your strongholds. I will cut off sorceries from your land. You will no longer have soothsayers. I will cut off your carved images and standing stones from among you. No longer will you worship what your own hands have made. I will pull up your sacred poles from among you and destroy your enemies. I will wreak havoc in anger and fury on the nations because they would not listen. So listen now to what Adonai says. Stand up and state your case to the mountains. Let the hills hear what you have to say. Listen, mountains, to Adonai's case. Also, you enduring rocks that support the earth. Adonai has a case against his people. He wants to argue it out with Israel. My people, what have I done to you? How have I wearied you? Answer me. I brought you up from the land of Egypt. I redeemed you from the life of slavery. I sent Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam to lead you. My people, just remember what Balaq, the king of Moab, had planned, what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him, and what happened between Shittim and Gilgal, so that you will understand the saving deeds of Adonai. With what can I come before Adonai to bow down before God on high? Should I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves in their first year? Would Adonai take delight in thousands of rams with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Could I give my firstborn to pay for my crimes, the fruit of my body, for the sin of my soul? Human being, you've already been told what is good, what Adonai demands of you. No more than to act justly, love grace, and walk in purity with your God. Thus ends the Haftorah. Our Ketuvim Netzarim this week is Hebrews chapter 11. And after we do the blessing, I'm going to invite JD up to read that chapter for us. So for the blessing before Hebrews chapter 11, the Ketuvim Netzarim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et rek haYeshua v'Mashiach Yeshua v'et sifrei Ketuvim Netzarim l'kal ha'amin. Blessed are you, Adonai our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the way of salvation, Messiah Yeshua, and the books of Nazarene writings to all the peoples. Baruch atah Adonai Noten Yeshua v'Yeshua HaMashiach. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of salvation, in Yeshua the Messiah.
And belief is the substance of what is expected, the proof of what is not seen. For by this the elders obtained witness. By belief, we understand that the ages were prepared by the word of Elohim, so that what is seen was not made of what is visible. By belief, Habel offered to Elohim a greater slaughter offering than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, Elohim witnessing of his gifts, and through it, having died, he still speaks. By belief, Hanok was translated so as not to see death, and was not found because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation, he obtained witness that he pleased Elohim. For without belief, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to Elohim has to believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. By belief, Noah, having been warned of what was yet unseen, having feared, prepared an ark to save his house, through which he condemned the world and became the heir of righteousness, which is according to the belief. By belief, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he was about to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By belief, he sojourned in the land of promise as a stranger, dwelling in tents with Yitzhak and Yaakov, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking for the city having foundations, whose builder and maker is Elohim. By belief also, Sarah herself was enabled to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the normal age, because she deemed him trustworthy who had promised. And so from one, and him as good as dead, were born as numerous as the stars of the heaven, and countless as the sand which is by the seashore. In belief all these died, not having received the promises, but seeing them from a distance, welcomed and embraced them, and confessed that they were aliens and strangers on earth. For those who speak this way made it clear that they seek a fatherland. And yet, if they had indeed kept remembering that place from which they had come out, they would have had the chance to return. But now they long for a better place, that is, a heavenly. Therefore, Elohim is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared a city for them. By belief, Abraham, when was tried, offered up Yitzhak. And he who had received the promise offered up his only brought forth son, of whom it was said, in Yitzhak your seed shall be called, reckoning that Elohim was able to raise, even from the dead, from which he received him back as a type. By belief, Yitzhak blessed Yaakov and Esau concerning that which was to come. By belief, Yaakov, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Yosef and did reverence on the top of his staff. By belief, Yosef, when he was dying, made mention of the outgoing of the children of Israel and gave orders concerning his bones. By belief, Moshe, having been born, was hidden 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a comely child, and were not afraid of the sovereign's command. By belief, Moshe, having become great, refused to be called the son of the daughter of Pharaoh, choosing rather to be afflicted with the people of Elohim than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a time, deeming the reproach of Messiah greater riches than the treasures in Mitzrayim, for he was looking to the reward. By belief, he left Mitzrayim, not fearing the wrath of the sovereign, for he was steadfast as seeing him who is invisible. By belief, he performed the Pesach and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By belief, they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, and when the Mitzrites tried, they were drowned. By belief, the walls of Jericho fell, having been surrounded for 7 days. By belief, Rahab, the whore, did not perish with those who did not believe, having received the spies with peace. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to relate of Gidon, and Barak, and Shimshon, and Yiftah, also David, and Shemuel, and the prophets, who, through belief, overcame reigns, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the powers of fire, escaped the edge of the sword out of weakness, were made strong, became mighty in battle, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection, and others were tortured, not accepting release, to obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of mockings and floggings and more, of chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were tried, they were sawn in two, they were slain with the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, being in need, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering in deserts and mountains and caves and holes of the earth. And having obtained witness through the belief, all these did not receive the promise. Elohim, having provided what is better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. Amen.
We have a short intermission before we begin our Torah study.
Be still my beating heart, do not be troubled. You shall not be afraid, it's the terror by night. The thousands fall beside, you will take shelter in the Most High. Most High, Most High. I will say of Yahweh, He is my refuge, my refuge. He will cover you, and under His wings you will find refuge. You're tread on lions and snakes, and if you drink poison, it won't harm you. He will deliver you from the snare and the trap, every pestilence. In the darkness, in the noonday, I will say of Yahweh, He is my refuge, my refuge. He will cover you under His wings. You will find refuge. You satisfy you with life, show you salvation. You will live every day in the shadow of Yahweh, the Most High, Most High, Most High. Because you know my name and cling to me in love, I will set you on high. I will be with you. I will be with you. Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat. The golden globe tonight, escape the past and embrace tonight. Candle flicker at dusk, vaguely reveals God's gift for us. The day will come, believe the day will come. The day will come, be sure the day will come. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat. Unto Adam was entrusted creation, and to his son Shabbat is his kingdom. The day will come, believe the day will come. The day will come, be sure the day will come. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a Yom that is ever Shalom and never Yom Shekulo Shabbat. When we turn back to Jerusalem, we're crying to see your face when you pour out on your people. Israel, when we turn back to Jerusalem, we're crying to see your face again. When you pour out on your people, Israel, when you have mercy on the whole house of Israel, day Israel will know you are their God. That will be the day there'll be no more disgrace and treachery that led us far away into the strange and distant land. But in our hearts, we long to go home. When we turn back to Jerusalem, we're crying to see your face again. When you pour out on your people Israel, that's at the end of the exile of Israel. Two brothers will be one in your hand. That will be the day we'll sing as one nation. We'll dwell in peace on land you gave to Jacob. You'll be our God, and we'll be your people. When we turn back to Jerusalem, we're crying to see your face again. When you pour out on your people Israel, when you have mercy on the whole house of Israel, that's at the end of the exile of Israel.
Hey, before we hello, this is not on. Before we begin our study today, I just got a text. My wife's grandmother, she lives in McMahon Nursing Home here in Balaq, and she has suffered a fall. She's hit her head and her arm. She has been taken to the emergency room at Comanche County. So if you wouldn't mind, just pray with me for a minute and for healing for her. Adonai, El Shaddai, healer, of your people. We pray that you would grant Lucille healing, and that she hasn't heard the doctors know what to do to take care of her, and that she will be granted a full recovery for what has happened. We pray, Father, that you would be with her, give her strength and give her confidence that she's in good hands, Father, and also comfort for her daughter and granddaughter who are extremely worried at this moment about her. We pray, Father, that you would heal her. We thank you, Father in heaven, for healing your children. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
So, the question, how many mitzvot are in this double portion? 3, 5, 7, or Z?
Yes.
Who votes for A, 3, by a show of hands?
I'll take 3. It's
Who's
wrong,
for
but I'll
3?
take 3.
Who votes for 5? Who says it's 7?
I'll go with 6.
7, there's a 7. Who says 0? Anybody?
For the second part of the second half of it, I think it was 0, is why I'm saying it's a low number.
Okay, so,
That's double portion, which one are you talking about?
yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and all of it.
How many in the double portion?
Can you tell us, was it correct in the second, in the Balaq portion, was it 0?
Balaq is 0. That's correct. All right, so 5 is out.
5 is right out.
You're out. You're out.
Get out.
Accepting that thou proceedest to 3.
Fine now.
But so is 0.
4 shall
It's
thou
either
not count.
3. This isn't the holy hand grenade thing. Okay.
Sorry.
Is it 3 or is it 7? Both are kind of good biblical numbers, right? Yeah, it's 3. And it's 3 for Chuqqat and 0 for Balaq. And here are the 3, the numbers of counting. The Torah of the Chuqqat, of the red heifer, the Torah of the Tumah, the uncleanness of a corpse, and the Torah of the water of purification. So before we begin our own study, a couple of videos from 119 for Chuqqat, and then also one from Balaq. A few minutes. Only a few
Welcome
minutes.
to another episode of Parashah Points, short thoughts from the weekly Torah portion. This week's Parashah point comes from Chuqqat, which is Hebrew for statute, and it goes from Numbers 19:1 to Numbers 22:1. This Torah portion gives instructions concerning the red heifer ritual, tells the story of Moses striking a rock, and records the deaths of Aaron and Miriam. It also tells the account of Moses holding up the bronze serpent, which saved the Israelites who were bitten by snakes when they looked at it, and it records the conquest of Arad, the Amorites, and Bashan. There's a lot we can talk about in this Torah portion. Today, we're going to talk about trusting in God. Numbers chapter 20. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. Moses did as Yahweh commanded, and they went up on Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron had perished, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. In this Torah portion, we see that Aaron, the first high priest of Israel, an important spiritual leader within the nation, had passed on and was replaced by his son, Eleazar. No doubt about it, this was deeply discouraging for many of the Israelites who looked to Aaron for spiritual direction. The scriptures say that the Israelites wept for Aaron 30 days. Perhaps you can imagine how painful and confusing of a time this must have been for the Israelites. One of their spiritual leaders had died. Now they had to get used to someone taking his place. It was a big adjustment. But what's important to note is that the Israelites did eventually move on. After a season of mourning, they moved forward in their journey, even though Aaron was no longer with them. Ultimately, Yahweh was still the one leading them. Sometimes things happen that seem to turn our lives upside down. Sometimes people we love and are close to who we think will be in our lives forever, leave. Sometimes we get let go from a job we've held for years. But we must keep in mind that despite feeling like we've lost everything, God is still with us. He is leading us. We must continue to move forward. God's desire is that we trust in Him above everything and everyone else. He is the one who provides for us, teaches us, guides us. Circumstances change. People move in and out of our lives. We go through tragedies. People we love leave, die, or even betray us. But the one constant we have is God Himself. He will never leave us nor forsake us. He is always there. Thank you for joining us for another PowerShot Point. We pray that you've been blessed by this teaching. And remember, continue to test everything. Shalom. Welcome to another episode of PowerShot Point, short thoughts from the weekly Torah portion. This week's PowerShot Point comes from Balaq, and it goes from Numbers 22:2 to Numbers 25:9. This Torah portion tells the story of Balaq, who hires Balaam to curse Israel. It also tells the story of Balaam's talking donkey, and the story of how Balaam blessed Israel rather than cursing them. The PowerShot concludes with a story of many Israelite men committing idolatry and fornication with the daughters of Moab and Midian. Phinehas stops the plague caused by this depravity by killing one of the couples who are engaging in pagan worship. There's a lot we can talk about in this Torah portion. Today, we're going to talk about self-control in the midst of frustration. We are all emotional people and we feel deeply. That's how God created us. But a problem arises when we assume our feelings reflect the absolute truth of any situation. Our feelings reflect only how we interpret a situation. New information or another perspective, however, often leads to a different interpretation. Consider the story of Balaam's donkey. Balaam was riding his donkey, but the donkey kept turning from the path and eventually crushed Balaam's foot against a wall. Balaam's immediate reaction was to beat his donkey. Why? Because Balaam was emotional. He felt like his donkey was trying to make him feel foolish. Numbers 22. Then Yahweh opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" And Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you." Because Balaam felt foolish, he reacted to this situation by beating and cursing his donkey. But his donkey wasn't trying to make Balaam feel foolish. In reality, the donkey was saving Balaam's life. What Balaam didn't know at the time was that the angel of Yahweh was going to kill him if he continued down a certain path. Numbers 22. And the angel of Yahweh said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let her live." Based on the information Balaam had before the angel of Yahweh confronted him, his feelings were understandable. However, his actions, that is, beating his donkey, were not a good example of how we should handle our feelings. After all, Balaam knew his donkey his entire life. He should have known better. He should have stopped, taken a deep breath, and looked around before immediately reacting out of hurt and anger. Balaam eventually found out what was really going on, but it was only after he had already reacted in a hurtful way. How often have you reacted from your hurt feelings, which led you to do or say something you later regretted? Like Balaam, how often have you lashed out at people who were simply trying to warn you about going down a destructive path? How often have you cursed those who care about you and severed relationships because people offended you? Unlike Balaam, we must not immediately assume that we have all the facts or that we know someone's true motives. We must avoid reacting to a situation by saying or doing something hurtful. We must lead our feelings instead of letting our feelings lead us. Additionally, we should consider that our friends who are willing to offend us are most likely trying to help us. A true friend is willing to rebuke you. You might think they are being a complete jerk in a moment, but sometimes God speaks through a donkey. Be humble, and instead of reacting out of emotion, try listening to what they have to say. Thank you for joining us for another Parashah Point. We pray you've been blessed by this teaching, and remember, continue to test everything. Shalom.
So next time a donkey talks to me, yes, I will definitely not hit it. That's my plan.
I'll be like, what? I'm gonna be rich.
So.
But I won't have my phone at the time, so I won't be able to record
I'll be able to take a picture, put it on YouTube. It's not right away.
Right.
So the word chuqqat is a word that is.
Maybe the battery's going dead.
Might be.
Beat
Let's see if there's another one available. It's making noise.
You just decided to quit?
Is
Beat it, and it will speak.
Got work.
it seems like it's maybe somebody's pressing on it. I'm not sure if it's in and out. Test. Ooh, that was hot.
Ooh, got reverb on that.
Yeah.
Hot mic.
Test two.
Yeah, that
It's got a lot of reverb on it. Try different.
Switch the batteries. Because the channel that it's plugged into has reverb turned on.
Or just might not be turned on over there. Test.
That's good.
Better.
The reverb mic would be a good one when you're quoting God.
We'll use that one for the Torah readings.
Oh boy. That's the,
God said.
I can't talk with the reverb on.
Let's see if I don't want to plug in this one.
Here, I'll get it.
Sorry about that. What? So the word is often translated as decree or statute, and our portion in the not the first words of it, but in verse 2 begins with Chuqqat HaTorah, the first part of verse 2, which is this is the Chuqqat of the Torah. Chuqqat is it's a word that means statutes of. It's in the construct form. So Article Tanakh in the notes, the Chumash notes says the law of the red cow or red heifer, same word in Hebrew, parah, is described by the sages as the quintessential Chuqqat HaTorah, or the quintessential decree of the Torah. So quintessential, how many? It's a lot of syllables, that one. It's actually from a Latin word that's in two parts. It means fifth essence in Latin. And in terms of the definition of quintessential, what the Art Scroll is talking about, it says they're referring to the red heifer as the most typical example or a representative of that type. The fifth element, the fifth essence, excuse me. Not the movie. So decree of, as I said, is in the construct form, singular, and it's often transliterated without the Q's, as we have there. It is a kuf, but it's usually translated with a K, chuqqat, or transliterated with a chuqqat with K's versus Q's. So you might recognize that word, chuqqat, as a derivative of one of the three types of mitzvot, adot, chukim, and mishpatim. The three types of mitzvot, in terms of what they are, derived from Deuteronomy or Devarim 4:44, that uses that phrase, 45, correction. These are the witnesses, laws, and right rulings, as ISR reads, for adot, chukim, and mishpatim. The JPS reads decrees, laws, and rules for those three words. Other translations have things like testimonies, statutes, decrees, and judgments. So how does your translation read for Deuteronomy 4:45? Is there any other ones that we didn't cover in terms of how those words are translated into English? CC, how does the New American Standard read?
Testimony, statutes, ordinances.
Testimony, statutes, and ordinances. So ordinances is a third way of translating mishpatim. So what kinds of commandments are they? Well, the mishpatim, we'll go to that one at first because it is the kind that is either judgments or ordinances, the New American Standard reads, for which it doesn't require any kind of explanation at all. It's obvious. It's things like murder and rape, robbery fall into that category of mishpatim. Moral, ethical commandments, which no explanation is necessary. The second one, edot, typically are the feast days, things that testify about some historical truth, historical event that happened in the life of Israel, often that Yah did for Israel. They remind us of his presence, his faithfulness, his kadoshness, his holiness, his set-apartness, as well as privileges and duties we have as his people, his children, and the reasons for edot are always stated. Hukim, on the other hand, are a bit different. Hukim, well, if edot are always stated and mishpatim are always obvious, hukim are neither one of those, or neither stated nor obvious. Things like you shall not plow with the ox and donkey together, you shall not wear material mixed of wool and linen together, and the Torah of the red heifer are all hukim. And ArchGold commentary says that the red heifer is the quintessential example of what hukim are. So it's given simply without an explanation. Reasons, what reasons did Yah have? Well, they're known only to himself. He decided to call his people to follow certain mitzvot, certain commandments, and didn't, in fact, not give a reason for doing so. So this goes sideways, I think, against with many in the religious world because the why question goes unanswered. And that's kind of by definition of what this type of commandment is. It does not answer why. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, the wisest man in history, remarked, I said I would be wise, but it is far from me, from Ecclesiastes. Now, this is some detail here. It's not necessarily a hard connection, but the numerical value of the words V'hi Rechacha, it is far from me, is the same number in numerical value of Hebrew gematria as the phrase Parah Aduma, 441, red cow, red heifer. And so from that, the rabbis conclude that the man with the most chokhmah, wisdom, could not fathom what was meant by the chukah of the red heifer. Now, going back to some historical testimony about this, the Mishnah, which is, of course, part of the oral tradition, it is the first part, and the Mishnah plus the Gemara together comprise the Talmud. The Mishnah has its own book called Parah. Now, we just said what Parah meant. What does Parah mean?
Cow.
It means cow or possibly heifer. Here's what the Mishnah says about the red heifer. It says that they did not find the residue of the ash from 7 previous red heifers. They did it with 6, from 5, from 4, from 3, from 2, from 1. And so according to this passage in the Mishnah, there were 9 red heifers from the first one in the desert to the Roman destruction of the temple. The first one was of Moshe and Eleazar from this Torah portion. So there wasn't a second one until the second temple, because the second one, according to the Mishnah at least, was burned by Ezra, which was Ezra and Nehemiah were the ones who built the second temple and rebuilt Jerusalem, the wall, and so on. There are two later by Shimon HaTzadik, two by the high priest Yochanan. The seventh was burned by Elianiah Bichakoth, the eighth by Hanamel the Egyptian, and the ninth by Ishmael, the son of Piabi. That's what Mishnah Para 3:5 says. And the commentary, this is what Rambam says. He says, according to Rambam, it was Ezra who reestablished the red heifer procedure after the first temple was destroyed. We don't have the methodology used to establish the procedure for purification from exile and death. We do know that the temple service was reestablished and the priests and Levites were purified. I'm not going to read the passage of Ezra, but if you'd like to take a look at that later, Ezra 3 and Ezra 6 detail the reestablishment of the temple, but it doesn't really give the details of how Ezra did it in terms of, did he have some of the ash of the first heifer, or did he just start completely from scratch? What Rambam in his commentary on the Mishnah, on Parah, says, and the 10th red heifer will be accomplished by the King, the Messiah. May he be revealed speedily. Amen. May it be Elohim's will. So, according to Rambam, the 10th red heifer, to reestablish that. And why do we need the red heifer after all? What's the purpose of the red heifer?
Cleansing for sin.
It's cleansing, right? Particularly from death, right?
Death.
Mm-hmm. So we need that to start the temple service, or the Kohanim and Levi'im do. According to Rambam, it'll be that 10th red heifer will be found and accomplished by the King, the Messiah. So what do you know? If you read from a lot of places a lot of sources indicate anyway, that there is in fact a red heifer that has been found. You see plenty of cases where we see some potentials red heifers. Usually those end up not being adequate, but the Temple Institute says they have everything they need to restart the service again. Yeah. So if Rambam is right, that means Messiah's return is pretty soon. So the mystery of the red heifer, in my view, is this. The priest, the one who burns the red heifer, and the one who gathers up the ashes of the red heifer, they become unclean. But one who is sprinkled by the ashes of the red heifer mixed with pure water is made clean. Same thing in terms of the ashes that made the priest and the one who gathered the ashes unclean. But the person who gets sprinkled on them becomes clean. I think that is the mystery of the red heifer. Next, a couple weeks now, Hebrews 13, we'll get into that. We're in Hebrews 11 now, but Hebrews 13 says, for the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, brings the blood of animals into the holiest place as a sin offering, but their bodies are burned outside the camp. So too Yeshua suffered death outside the camp in order to make the people holy through his own blood. Therefore, let us go out to him who is outside the camp and share his disgrace. So the author of Hebrews is basically equating the cleansing of the red heifer with Yeshua's death, who was killed outside the camp. Galatians says the Messiah redeemed us from the curse pronounced in the Torah by becoming cursed on our behalf. For the Tanakh says everyone who hangs from a stake comes under a curse. Again, that's how we're being redeemed from the curse by Yeshua in his role, if you will, as a type and shadow or a type of red heifer, cleansing from the curse of death. So what does it mean to be outside the camp? Again, for the Mishnah says, all the walls of the temple were high except the eastern wall, so that the priest who burnt the red heifer might, while standing on the top of the Mount of Olives, by directing his gaze carefully, see the door of the Hekal, of the temple, at the time of the sprinkling of the blood. And this is a an artist's rendition of what that might have looked like. This is the view from the Mount of Olives through the Kidron Valley to the temple on the other side. So according to the historical record, and again, the Mishnah, the ashes of the red heifer were kept in 3 places in Israel during the temple times. The first place was the Mount of Olives. The second place was the temple courts themselves in a special room. And the third place, it really is more than one because it was sent throughout the land to Levitical cities for whoever needed it to purify themselves. So there's really, it was all around. So it's possible, if this is accurate in terms of what the first temple period was, it's possible that Ezra was able to find some of these ashes to start the red heifer, or start the temple service again with the red heifer. But we don't know for sure if he used some of these ashes or found any of these ashes at all, or if he started it again by himself. It's been suggested that as a prophetic foreshadowing, the water pots used at the wedding of Cana in Galilee in John chapter 2, Yochanan chapter 2, were ones used specifically for purification from death. Hence Yeshua's statement, "My hour has not yet come," to use those water pots. So one of the passages from our Torah talks about a short commandment, the commandment to look at the bronze serpent put on a pole. And the end of it here, verse 9 says, "So Moshe made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, and it came to be, if a serpent had bitten anyone, when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived." So, question. This is a comment, really a question really asked by the Talmud, in Rosh Hashanah 29a. It says, "Does a snake cause death or life?" The answer is no, not a bronze snake. However, when Israel looked heavenward and subjected their hearts to their Father in heaven, they would be healed, but if not, they would waste away. So, looking at, this idea, the look and live idea actually comes from other places as well, including from the Apocrypha. This is Wisdom 16 that says, "For when the terrible rage of wild animals came upon your people and they were being destroyed by the bites of writhing serpents, your wrath did not continue to the end. They were troubled for a little while as a warning and received a symbol of deliverance to remind them of your law's command," or Torah's command. "For the one who turned toward it was saved, not by the thing that was beheld, but by you, the Savior of all." So the idea of being saved by looking is found in the Apocrypha. Of course, you see it in Yochanan or John chapter 3. "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that whoever believes will in him have eternal life. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." So the lifted up idea is really the look and live. It may well be the shortest teaching about Yeshua in the Torah.
Isn't that the same symbol for the medical field?
It is the same symbol for the medical field. Yes, it is. So in our second portion, the Balaam, or Balaq was the name of it. Balaam or Balaam was a big part of it, of course. Excuse me. The Talmud discusses the teaching of Balaam, and they essentially, following the instruction of Balaam, they sought to curse and destroy Israel without actual violence. Balaam advised Balaq that the Elohim of Israel hates fornication, and to entice the men of Israel with Moabite wine and, of course, with Moabite women. But there was a catch. When the Israelite men's passions were inflamed, the women were instructed to have the Israelite men worship their deities, bow down to their idols, and renounce the Torah as a prerequisite to engaging in fornication with them. Is that thumbs up? Is that a good technique?
It'll do the job.
It was a cursing themselves, right? They couldn't, because as Balaam said, he couldn't curse Israel because God of Israel wouldn't allow him, he would only speak his words. But he did give some advice to how to get Israel to curse themselves. This is how, at least how the Talmud has interpreted that. Get Israel to curse themselves by doing things that bring curses upon themselves. This is also referenced in Hikalut or Giliana or Revelation. This is Revelation chapter 2, reading from the Peshitta Magira translation from the Aramaic. But I have a few things against you. You have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to set a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, to eat the sacrifices of idols and to commit fornication. So, my comment, in his instruction to the assembly at Purimus, the Messiah himself revealed that Balaam taught Balak idolatry and fornication as the ways to ensnare Israel and cause Israel to stumble. So Balaamism, do these things sound like modern forms of Balaamism to you? It doesn't matter what you do. What you believe in your heart is what's important. Using the name or using Yeshua as a magic word or incantation. What about this? Paul said that nothing is forbidden. What about this one, perhaps more controversial? Homosexuality was only a sin in the Old Testament when associated with idol worship. In any case, those old law commandments against homosexuality are obsolete and were nailed to the cross. I think all of these could be stumbling blocks.
Very dangerous.
So I know it was a short study for the Torah side. What are your questions? The Dachshund wants to know.
I find it unusual that Balaam isn't disturbed by his donkeys, and he immediately carries on a conversation.
That's
It does seem odd that there's not even any kind of a, whoa, my donkey's talking.
Yeah, right. It just starts the conversation.
Oh, a talking donkey.
Yeah, you're talking. You're lucky I didn't kill you.
So,
And
as 119 guy said, if your donkey talks to you,
that, I just find it
yeah.
unusual.
If your donkey talks to you, if your dog talks to you,
There's only 2 times, I think, in Scripture where we find a talking animal. The other one's the snake in Genesis. Or the serpent. Whatever it is.
maybe animals talk more once upon a time.
we see it a lot in Narnia, so it's probably.
So we know somebody who used to be part of this fellowship who has completely left faith in Elohim, and when approached some number of years ago and asked why, his exact response was, "I can't believe in talking donkeys."
I think I know what you're
Okay, we'll have a short couple of slides on Hebrews 11.
Go ahead.
I know. I'm an interrupter.
We're just back in time. Go ahead.
This is one of the places where it doesn't come across in a lot of translation. One of the places where the angel of God was called a saint.
It's called what?
A saint.
Adversary.
When the angel was talking to Balaam and said, "I came as a," whatever anybody else's translation said. Hebrew actually says, "as a saint against you."
Because it means adversary doesn't necessarily mean, like Lucifer or, like in Israel, in the court system, the plaintiff is the adversary, is the Satan, and the defendant is, I don't remember what they're called, but the one against you is considered the adversary, Satan.
Because adversary is basically a title of what you do.
Right.
Not a proper name.
39, I think 39 or somewhere in at times in script in the Tanakh, where the word Satan in the original Hebrew was translated into something else. So that I guess they were protecting their reader, didn't want them to think of the evil one, so they would translate it as something else. that it was actually Satan.
Does it really mean evil one?
No, it just means an
Right.
adversary.
Adversary.
Someone who's against.
Or enemy.
He was just opposing where he was going.
When Yeshua told his disciple, "Get behind me, Satan," I don't think he was calling him the evil one. It's just that time, what Yeshua was trying to do, that apostle was kind of going against it.
You're the opposer
Yeah,
of
you're
what's
the
right.
opposer. No, that's not what I do. You're
That's
opposing. Here's what I want to do. Get behind me. I'm trying to do this. That's all.
And so perhaps largely taken out of context in a Christian worldview.
Yeah, very much so.
I like
That's
that.
how translators can sway the story, the point of the story.
So in Genesis, when it talks about Satan in the garden, is that Satan Lucifer, or is that Satan an opponent, someone who's opposing, adversarial?
I can say I've always understood it to be Hasatan, as in,
Satan is not, is.
Oh, when you
Satan,
say,
right?
I'm sorry.
Ha is the.
I didn't mean to interrupt her. I can't hardly hear her talking. Did I interrupt you?
No,
Okay, I'm sorry. And when you say ha, Satan, or the Satan, you're pointing directly to a certain person or a certain entity.
Yes,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. I understood the serpent in the garden to be Hasatan, not an adversary in the sense of.
AKA Lucifer.
I mean,
perhaps.
I don't
He
mean
was certainly
not
doing
an
against what
evil
God did.
adversary, I mean, not, but an evil adversary other than Lucifer?
Or
Or is
Lucifer
it
himself.
Lucifer himself?
I understood it to be, Lucifer himself in that sense, inhabiting the body of the snake.
Satan
As a spirit.
is used to identify him.
Yeah.
But it's also used to just say adversary in other places. It's not always talking about what we call the devil.
Mhm.
But in the snake in the garden, could have been both. I mean, when you are Hasatan, it goes without saying, you are against what Yah's trying to do. So you fulfill both of those. You're the Satan and you're an adversary against what he's trying to do.
But being an adversary to someone else and not necessarily being the same as Hasatan.
Right.
And probably the reason for a lot of the translation perhaps issues is because it's a single Hebrew word used in different ways.
Well, it wouldn't be prefaced by Ha.
Right.
He's being a Satan.
Not the Satan. Yeah.
Right. Okay, a couple slides on Hebrews, because as an overview, Hebrews 11, of course, is known as the great faith chapter, and there's good reason for it. Read about all these people that were, they were believers and faithful in ancient times. We've read some things in the past in the previous discussions that Yeshua in chapters 8 and 9 was talking about the Yom Kippur, his role in relation to the Yom Kippur ceremony. Last week in chapter 10, we looked at the sacrifice as a remembrance or continuation or remembrance of the sacrifice of Yeshua. And in Hebrews 10 later on, that the author opposed those who opposed the temple service and encouraged followers of Yeshua to actually come together in the temple. Hebrews 11 has some parallels in other places. For example, in the book of Maccabees in the Apocrypha, Judah the Maccabees' father recounts, "Was not Abraham found faithful when tested, and was reckoned to him as righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment, became Lord of Egypt. Pinchas, or Phinehas, our ancestor, because he was deeply zealous, received the covenant of everlasting priesthood. Joshua, because he fulfilled the command, became a judge in Israel. Caleb, because he testified to the assembly, received an inheritance in the land. David, because he was merciful, inherited the throne of the kingdom forever. Elijah, because of great zeal for the law or the Torah, was taken up into heaven. Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael believed they were saved from the flame, typically called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Daniel, because of his innocence, was delivered from the mouth of the lions.
And Gilligan came off the island.
We also see it in Sirach, and this is similar. This is just a section of that from Sirach 44:1 to 50:21. Sirach says, "Let us now sing the praises of famous men or ancestors in their generations." And for chapter 49, the memory of Nehemiah also is lasting. He raised our fallen walls and set up gates and bars and rebuilt our ruined houses. Few have ever been created on earth like Enoch, for he was taken up from the earth. Nor was anyone ever born like Joseph. Even his bones were cared for. Shem and Seth and Enosh were honored, but above every other creature, every other created living being was Adam. So those are some parallels into the faith chapter, men of great faith. But I want to talk about a discrepancy that some have pointed out and said, well, Hebrews can't be right because of this. So if you look at Hebrews 11:21, most translations read very similar to this. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the top of his staff. Well, the passage that's taken from Bereshit, Genesis 47:31 says, "Swear to me," and he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed. Why the discrepancy? Why the difference? I'm glad you asked. Because it's actually, if you look at this word here, al rosh, ha, and then you can guess which vowel points go there. Well, the difference is in how you vowel point that. Prior to vowel points being added, nikadot, how would you distinguish bed from staff? You look on the phrase at the very top of the screen. That's from an unvowel pointed text. In the Masoretic text, it is vowel pointed. But you see the word for staff there. It's mem, tet, he, the same as bed, but with different vowel points. So, but prior to nekadot being inserted, how would one distinguish between bed and staff?
It would be content. That would be kind of hard to be content.
That's right. It typically would say content or context would be the right way to do that. In this case,
yeah,
either one could potentially work. And so, centuries before nekadot were added, the earliest Jewish translation of the Torah interpreted to mean staff. And that's how they translated the Septuagint, the Greek text of the Torah. And Hebrews 11:21 uses that same phrase as in the same way that the Septuagint reads. But even if they're looking at it from a Hebrew text, if they were, they might just look at it, and because Hebrews was written before our vowel points also, they could interpret it either way. So the difference isn't one translation is wrong and one translation is right, is that it's the same word translated different ways. So basically it's a split word, so to speak. Now, how does Hebrews look at it? Well, Hebrews actually uses a different word. It uses shavto for my staff or my scepter, but it's the same word. It's from the word shevet, not to be confused with a
Chevy car.
Yeah, an inexpensive Chevy vehicle. But it's the same word as used when it says the scepter shall not depart. That's the word shevet. And so Hebrews uses l'rosh shavto, or the head of the staff, or scepter, really would be a better translation for that. For the last word there, l'rosh shavto.
Yeah.
one of the things, if you go back, and this is if you go back a couple, this is from Hebrews 11:21. Also 11:21 has a phrase that's kind of unique to, it doesn't just say faith in Hebrews, it says by a work of faith, but avod ha'emunah, by a work of faith or work of faithfulness. Emunah is typically translated as faithfulness, or understood to be faithfulness. And so that's where Hebrews, in fact, calls it a work or a service. You could say avod doesn't always mean work. It could be service as well.
Yeah.
A service.
Position.
Say again?
Or position.
Position?
Yep.
So that's kind of an anomaly to Hebrews in the sense of you see it written as perhaps as a Hebrew would have seen it, as a work of faith or a work of faithfulness or as a service of faithfulness. And that is all I have for Hebrews 11. What are your questions?
That's a pretty good chapter.
It is. Well, so we'll close here with the Aaronic benediction. If you would please stand for Rico Cortez and the Aaronic benediction.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom.
Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down. Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down. Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down. Let the mountains shake, let the earth be moved, that the nations may tremble at your presence, that your fire burn, that the waters burn, that your name be known to this generation, and come down. That you would rend the heavens and come down. Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down. Will you restrain yourself any longer? Don't hide your face in your anger. Jerusalem is oppressed by the nations. Let me stop your throne. Desolation, come down. Heavens and come down. Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down. There will be thunder, Lion, you will roar. Dear angry, for the sake of Zion, and all the nations they will know when you come down. You come down. Oh, then you will rend the heavens and come down. Oh, then you will rend the heavens and come down. Indeed, we have sinned. We sin, our righteousness is erased. No other sin, no lesson that you prepare for those who wait. When you come
Sorry about this Monday thing. Oh, it's the, I can see you with the, it's the Exodus, the first teaching going to be. I think it's going to be more of a pretty semi-permanent Monday